Set in a maximum security prison, the story begins with the arrival of a new prisoner named Eric. This young man is still 18 years old. It is said that Eric has several criminal records of repeated violence, thus making him go to prison. As usual, Eric had to undergo a number of very strict checks before finally being able to enter his cell. Because of his young age, Eric was very stressed about it. He also thought that in any prison, his existence was not safe from other prisoners. Because of this thought, Eric then decided to assemble and craft a self-protection weapon that could be used in a threatened situation. There he was seen utilizing a razor blade and a toothbrush, which was then assembled into a knife. In order not to be caught by the warden if he had a sharp weapon, Eric hid his weapon in the light box of his cell room. After that, he then did some light exercise until the prison meal had arrived. But when he was lining and would take his lunch, Eric was involved in a brief feud with another prisoner named Jago. Jago is a prisoner who gets the task of distributing food to all prisoners. After getting his food, Eric then decided to eat the food in his own room. Then he mingled with the other prisoners in the field. Little did he know that his father, Neville, was also in the prison, and currently Neville is serving a life imprisonment sentence in this prison. The father then advised Eric that he should behave and not rebel and follow all the rules so that he could get out of there as soon as possible. But Eric, who was very unruly, chose to ignore his father's advice. Sometime later, a prisoner named MacDonald then visited Eric. Thinking that MacDonald was planning to harm him, Eric gave the man a very brutal beating. As soon as Eric saw that MacDonald had no bad intentions towards him, he rushed the man to the emergency hospital. On the other hand, the guards immediately detected the assault and immediately took quick steps to catch Eric. Here it can be seen that the guards had a hard time dealing with Eric, as he was a young man who was quite strong and capable of putting up a fight. Eventually, a man named Oliver, who is a volunteer prison therapist, came to Eric's aid and asked the guards to immediately move Eric to solitary confinement. Oliver managed to convince the warden and other officers at the prison to allow Eric to participate in regular therapy sessions. At the facility, Oliver informed Eric and attempted to get him to participate in the therapy sessions, having first obtained the authority to do so from the warden and other authorities. The authorities then explained the rules that Eric had to follow during the therapy sessions. If the young man broke the rules, the authorities stated that Eric would be immediately expelled from Oliver's therapy group, and he would never be allowed to attend therapy sessions again. Meanwhile, Neville, who turned out to be the right-hand man of the Mafia King who ran the prison named Dennis, was trying to find protection for his son. Dennis is responsible for running the prison. On the other hand, Dennis is also ready to protect Eric, provided that the young boy doesn't make trouble with other prisoners or guards, and he complies with all the restrictions in the prison. After that, Neville paid a personal visit to Eric while he was in prison. Furthermore, Neville pleaded with his son to learn good behavior and abide by the prison rules so that he could be released. Neville warned Eric not to get into trouble, especially with the guards. Because if Eric did this, the warden would order the guards to kill Eric and make his death as a suicide, so that the prison board wouldn't suspect him. Eric assured his father that he would behave himself and heed his father's instructions. Although the young man had expressed his desire to go to prison, just so he could see his father behind bars. But Eric, who was indeed stubborn, said that so that his father would stop advising him. One day, Eric made the mistake of entering Jago's holding cell, which happened to be open, and Jago knew of his existence. After that, Eric stole Jago's lighter and made a joke on MacDonald by burning the item on him. Not surprisingly, this action made Jago angry, and he is then forced to find the premises of other prisoners to find the matches he wants. When Eric attended his next Oliver therapy session, the young man caused even more trouble, and the guards are forced to take Eric back to his holding cell, where he was originally detained. Although Eric is still very young, his feelings are quite shaky. It was especially reminiscent that Eric had lost the father figure of his childhood due to Neville's incarceration. Oliver also understands that Eric's behavior often causes confusion and conflict with other inmates. Therefore, Oliver appealed to the inmates who attended his therapy sessions to look after Eric and protect him from other inmates and staff. Hassan, a black inmate who is also a member of Oliver's circle of friends, stepped in to save Eric. This was after Oliver begged Hassan to do so. Meanwhile, 3 other inmates had been bribed with drugs by Jago to dunk Eric in the toilet. Hassan immediately prevented Eric from fighting his attackers and warned Eric that it would put him in a worse situation. Hassan's instructions seem to be followed by Eric as he decides to clean himself up. After that encounter, Eric began to regularly attend Oliver's therapy sessions and befriended other inmates who also participated in the counseling sessions. Most of them were black people with violent pasts, which they were trying to overcome. The meetings often turned into an outlet for the anger of the members, who were angry with the other members, which Oliver diffused. In his therapy, Oliver helps them understand their madness. Eric begins to notice and connect with the other members of the group. Neville was exasperated by his son's fraternization with the black prisoners when he started attending Oliver's therapy sessions, and they became good friends. Neville says that he asked Eric to listen to Oliver's therapy sessions so that he could learn to control his emotions, not to become good friends with the black offenders. When Eric tried to express his feelings to the agitated Neville, he felt that his father had a love affair with his cellmate Ashley, and Eric was shocked because of that. The next day, Oliver is seen visiting Eric in his prison cell and trying to get closer to the young man. Oliver and Eric talked briefly about his past and their different lifestyles before heading to the counseling room to meet up with the others in the therapy session. Despite the hustle and bustle and disagreements, Oliver overcomes them and encourages his group members to suppress their anger and emotions. This was so that the prison officers could conduct another therapy session. As the days went by, Eric grew closer to Oliver's group members over time and often exercised with them. One day, Eric was suddenly attacked again while taking a shower by another prisoner. But Eric retaliated and forced them to reveal who sent them, who was none other than Jago. Hearing this, Eric, who was angry, then used his homemade weapon to take down Jago. Eric then knew about the prison structure that places ultimate authority in the hands of Dennis, a criminal leader who is also an inmate, rather than in the warden control. Dennis begins to mentor Eric, having seen his younger self in Eric, realizing his immense potential. Neville immediately intervenes when Eric tries to attack Dennis. Because of his misunderstanding, Dennis then instructs Jago to stop bothering Eric, as he is Neville's son. After that, Dennis invited Neville to join him. Meanwhile, the man is trying to get Eric to join him, but Eric doesn't seem interested in Dennis' offer. Eric was changing for the better every day, as he participated more attentively in the therapy sessions. The young man has gained self-control and is more accepting of others. Eric seemed calmer and more comfortable when talking to Oliver and his group peers. Eric also began to smile and laugh when he was with the group. One day, Neville, who saw Eric's progress while attending therapy sessions, walked into the room where they met. The man then tried to make things worse for Eric by recounting one of his most embarrassing moments. Hearing this, one of the group members made a joke that irritated and angered Eric. Oliver and another group member, named Tyrone, tried to calm Eric down. Tyrone then fought with them, as he too couldn't control his emotions. When the gang members started fighting with each other, Oliver was unable to stop them. Mrs. Cardew, who is one of the highest administrators in the prison, finally noticed the disturbance. And she tells Oliver that Eric will be excluded from the therapy sessions, as he has broken the agreement. Oliver tried to persuade Mrs. Cardew to reconsider her decision, as Eric had made a lot of progress during the therapy sessions. But Mrs. Cardew insisted on sticking to her choice. After the commotion, Oliver seemed to have trouble controlling his anger and attempted to attack the warden. Meanwhile, Eric was furious and annoyed at his father for interrupting his therapy session and unleashed his anger by hitting him. Neville didn't fight back, however, and instead let his son beat him until Eric was happy. Because of the fight, Eric and Neville were arrested and placed in separate prisons. When Dennis tries to mediate between them, Eric continues to confront his father and attacks him. Dennis orders the warden to kill Eric after he attacked and belittled him while in solitary confinement. Meanwhile, Neville, who escaped from solitary confinement in order to meet Dennis to apologize for his son's actions. And Neville also urges Dennis to guarantee Eric's safety. Dennis lied to Neville about protecting Eric. He tells Neville that he already considers Eric as a member of his own family, where families must protect each other. When Neville told Dennis that he wouldn't accept his son's death, the prison guards in the dungeon beat Eric and began to hang him, making it look like a suicide. Dennis then attacks Neville and tries to kill him too, but Neville overcomes him and stabilizes him. Neville immediately rushes to the basement to save his son, who is preparing to hang himself. Before he can save his son, Neville must first fight and immobilize the warders. He defeated the warders just in time to save Eric. But the warden reported the incident to the prison board as an attempted suicide. Eric was upset and sobbed when he realized that his father was trying to save him. Eric didn't know that his father loved him so much, and that everything Neville did was to protect him in prison. At the end of the story, Eric is sleeping in a hospital room to recover. He is visited by members of his group who offer support and encouragement for what has just happened. Shortly thereafter, Eric went to his holding cell and was contacted by the prison warden to go out for a while. And apparently, there Eric had to see his father, who was about to be transferred to another prison, which made them hug each other for the last time in this prison here. It looks like Eric is very sad to see his father's move to another prison, while he's still in this prison. Along with this scene, the movie ended.